Emes and Sheker, and we're in this sefer called Emes Knei, in the second parak here, in the Sif Yud, and he says here that it's a midas chasidus, meaning it's appropriate. Anything which is somebody else is supposed to do, like you're saying, Reuven is supposed to go to the bank, or Shimon is going to go pick up food. So you should not say Reuven is going to pick up food or Shimon is going to the bank, because maybe he will not do that, and therefore it'd be a dvar sheker. So because it's dvar sheker tirchak, you should not state definitively that somebody else is going to do something. Okay, so the idea is that, of course, it's not, everybody knows you're not promising that the other person's going to do it. It's not in your hands to promise that that's going to happen. But nevertheless, it's not appropriate for you to say that that person's going to do it if if you can avoid it. Again, it's about amidas chasidus, what's appropriate to do. Somebody who says he's going to do or not going to do something, and he doesn't say bli neder. What happens if he doesn't fulfill his statement? So some people say that he is over and midvar sheker tirchak. That he is. I think we should try and keep the noise down. And some people say he's over and midvar sheker tirchak because he said he was going to do something, and some people say it's only a lower level of prohibition, which is here defined as sheris yisrael lo yasu avlo or hin tzedek. This is something which he's going to explain much later on, which is that there are levels of obligation which devolve on a person, which are lower levels than the prohibition on lying. The Gemara in Ksubas talks about, and other places talks about, a Jew, sheris yisrael lo yasu avlo v'lo yidabru davar chazav. A Jew does not say things which are incorrect. Or there's another Gemara, which is the same Gemara says, based on a pasuk in Chumash itself. It says, a couple weeks ago, Parsha in Kedoshim, it says you have a hin tzedek. And Chazal say that means hein shechol yeh tzedek. When you say yes, it should be right, and when it should correct, and we say no, it should be correct. Meaning that if a person makes a statement, they should follow through in that statement, and that they should fulfill the word which they gave. This is what the level of a promise. In other words, if I promise to do something and I don't use one of the ways which obligate me definitively, like a neder, a vow or an oath, so then I'm still obligated to do what I said I was going to do, but it's a much lower level obligation than if I had taken actually a vow or an oath. And that level of obligation is either the pasuk sheis yisrael lo yasu avlo, that the remnant of Israel will not do something inappropriate, and not to speak something which is untrue, or because of hein tzedek, that your statements of yes should be correct and appropriate. That statement, hein tzedek, is talking about a concept which is talking about weights and measures. It's about, it says hin tzedek, right? You should have a proper weight of a hin, which is a measure the Torah speaks about. It's not talking about your statements. Chazal use it as an asmachta. It's not a real drasha. So therefore, the fact that your promise has to be true is not d'oraisa. Again, if you took a neder or a shvua, or you obligate yourself by making a kinyan, that's something else altogether. But if a person just made a promise, it's not the same thing. So here he says, and this is something which I would not agree with actually, is that a person doesn't say bli neder, they transgress one of these lower levels of prohibition, or the lower levels of keeping one's word, even if it's not b'dvar sheker tirchak. Only if you said bli neder can you consider yourself off the hook. I don't think bli neder or not saying bli neder makes any difference whatsoever. Because the way people say bli neder, it's clear that people mean to obligate themselves, and conversely, if people don't say bli neder, it's clear that people don't mean to obligate themselves. In other words, if a person doesn't make something into an absolute neder or shvua, so then I don't think the word bli neder actually makes a difference. I think that bli neder is much more of a nice frumkeit, and I'm not saying it's a bad one, it's a nice one. A nice kind of nice chumrah, which a person takes upon himself to distance himself from making the Dorim, from making oaths and vows. But it's not that saying bli neder actually makes a difference in the level of obligation or not. But then he says no. He says if a person says I'm going to lo says varploni, he doesn't, or es says varploni, or lo says varploni, I'm going to do something and not do something, and doesn't say bli neder. If he doesn't fulfill his words, it's a problem. Okay. Now, of course, when it comes to business dealings, you're not allowed to renege on your word even after you give money. Even though according to the halacha, it's not the end of a kinyan is not when you give the money, but rather when the object exchanges hands. There's still halacha in Bava Metzia where we learn that if somebody gives the money and then breaks the kinyan, he doesn't follow through and taking delivery of the object, and he demands his money back, so he's subject to something called a mishapora. What's a mishapora? So it's a curse. It's a mishapora midora mabu dora flaga. He who took retribution from the generation of the flood and generation of the Tower of Babel, he should take retribution. Retribution from that person who doesn't fulfill his promise. So we don't. There's different opinions. One opinion is you say in shul, another is that the Beis Din says it, another is that you can just say it to the guy yourself. There are various different opinions. But the Pashup shot is like you're saying, that Mishapora means that because they just like you get Mishaberach in shul if you get an Aliyah, you get a Mishapora in shul if you broke a kinyan. Okay? So yes. So this is the idea, the highest level perhaps that Chazal fine a person for not keeping his word by saying that he's subject to Mishapora. Now, he can still renege on the deal. If a person is willing to be cursed, it doesn't matter. He can still renege on the deal. But that is obviously supposed to be a safeguard. And once people pay, money exchanges hands, even though the object is not going to exchange hands, that it's considered to be an obligation to go follow through. Let's go over that again. Midoraisa, according to Rabbi Yochanan, who we seem to hold like, Midoraisa on a Torah level, ma'os konos. If I give you money to buy an object, the object is mine. If I give you money to buy, let's say, your pen, you're selling a pen, I give you money to buy a pen, the pen is mine the moment I pay the money. Rabbanan came along and said, no. It's not a complete sale until I actually get the pen. Until I actually get the pen, I have not completed the sale. It's not yet mine, and therefore I can still back out of the deal. If I do back out of the deal, I'm a rotten fink, and then therefore I get a mishapara. But nevertheless, you're allowed to halachically to back out of the deal until the delivery takes place. Because I'll say the reason why they made this takana, that the kinyan does not take place except in Mashiach, when somebody pulls or lifts up the object and brings it to himself, is Shema Yomer Lo HaMocher, that because the seller might say to him, Nisafu Chitecha B'Aliyah. You know that thing which you were supposed to take delivery on? That pen or that grain? Oh, it got burnt up. There was a fire and I got burnt up. And if the object would already have belonged to the buyer, so then it's tough luck on the buyer. He's not going to get the object because it's his object to burn. But since it's still the seller's, according to the Takot of the Rabbanan of Kinyan Mashiach, so the seller has an incentive, obviously, to make an effort and save the object so that the sale can go through, because otherwise it's going to have to refund the money. So I think Chazal decided we're going to say that even though most calls Midaraisa, Mirabbanan they're not going to. There the Gemara also says that if a person obligates himself to make a kinyan, then, and he's choserbo, he reneges on the deal, ein ruach chachamim nochei meno. It's a very hard thing to define. It says the spirit of Chazal is not satisfied with him. In other words, we are not happy that you renege on your deal. Okay? It's hard to pin down what exactly that level of censure is, but the bottom line is that if a person says something, he promises somebody else something which has monetary value. Like, I promise to sell you something. I promise to buy something from you. Not I promise to stand on my head. If I said promise to have my head, I don't have my head, it's meaningless. But if I promise to buy or sell something from you and I don't do it, and this is true. For example, he brings down if somebody promised to give his friend a gift, right? And he does give the friend a gift, so then and this is furthermore, it's also to be deceitful, to say one thing and mean another thing, and therefore, if you say something, you should follow through on what you said. Okay, later on I was going to speak to that at greater length. A person should not praise himself with levels, with milas which he does not have. Okay, this is a tough one. Such as a Talmid Chacham who comes to a place and out of his silence people give him covered. The cover which a person who finished 2 Masechtas should get, and he knows he only learned 1 Masechta. He has to tell him that he doesn't only learn 1 Masechta, not 2. And he certainly should not trick them deliberately that they should think that he's a bigger Talmid Chacham than he actually is. So, of course, many Talmid Chacham, including myself, will probably transgress this all the time. But you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be honest as to what you know and how much you know, and otherwise you're being deceitful. There's a story that Emes Knei once came to the Chayz of Lublin, and he said to the Chayz, why don't you go out and tell your Hasidim, I don't know if it's exactly the Chayz or whatever, they can tell about any Rebbe, but maybe now it's not the Chayz, but it's some Rebbe. They came to him and said, why don't you go and tell your Hasidim the truth, that you don't know anything, and that you're not Moritz, and they shouldn't be following you, and that it's a mistake for them to actually be your followers. So the Chayz said, you're right. And he opened the window and he said to his followers, again, I don't know exactly if it's about the Chayz, and I don't know if it's telling the story exactly, but it's similar. This is the way the story basically goes. And he announced to them, I'm a fraud, I'm a charlatan, I'm a nobody. And his Hasidim immediately gave him greater respect because they said not only is he a big tzaddik, but he's also an onav. He's also a very humble person. That he's denying that he has all these great levels, which we know he actually has. So this could backfire sometimes. A person can be a great onav. Can say, I don't know, and people are going to think that not only does he know, but he's also an onav. And then it backfires. So you have to be careful that people actually believe you when you deny that you have that knowledge or that level of attainment in this world. I tell over, yes. He's only allowed to if he's being motzi others. That's interesting. I never heard that before. It's possible it's true. I don't know. I never heard it, but that doesn't mean it's not true. I assume that that's because it's an embarrassment. In other words, it's different than getting false covered. It's an embarrassment for the rabbi if he actually missed Sphira. Right? So that's not the same thing. So the rabbi doesn't have to degrade himself. He just has to be accurate in praising himself. That would be the difference. Somebody once came to me many years ago when I was in the Mir Yeshiva in Brooklyn, before I was married. A kid in the high school came to me and said, is it true what they say about you? So I said, what do they say about me? So he said, they say about you that you learned all of Shas except for one blot, so that you couldn't say that you finished Shas. So I said, first of all, it's not true. I didn't learn all of Shas, and nowhere near all of Shas. Besides, anybody who knows me knows that if I would have come close to finishing Shas, I would have finished Shas, so I could tell everybody that I finished Shas. So obviously, a person has to be very careful in what they say. That the people shouldn't have the impression that he is holier or actually of higher level of anova than he actually is. Okay. A person is, as we said, a person is not allowed to say one thing and mean another thing. That, of course, has to do with gnevas das. Gnevas das means when I try to deceive somebody, gnevas das is usher, as we know, for anybody in the world. Now, to be gnev das of any person, even a person who is an oved avodah zarah, even an idolater. So therefore, such as if you're selling, let's say you sell your car, and it has an oil leak, just random. It has an oil leak, and you don't tell the person it has an oil leak, and you won't know it has an oil leak until it actually starts leaking out. So then that is considered being nebas das, right? You can't even say, can't even deceive a person who's going to think that you wanted to serve him or do him a favor and give him a gift if it wasn't your intent to do that. In other words, he's going to come and think, Gemara brings a case where a couple of rabbis came out and they met another rabbi on the road, and the rabbi said, "It's so nice you came out to greet me, I feel deeply honored." And they were honest, and they said, "No, we didn't come out to greet you, we just have to be traveling down this road." So even that level of knevas das, that's a chumrah. Because if a person's gonev his own das, if a person makes a mistake, you don't have to correct him. But they were machmir, even though that person was making his own mistake, they corrected him and said, "No, we didn't come out in order to greet you." So again, that's not the required, but that is a nice chumrah in order that a person should not try, there should not be any, even unintentionally, deceitful to other people. Okay, so the things which relates to this is if people come to you to buy something, and let's say they come to you to buy a pen, and you say, "I don't sell pens, but go to Ruvain because Ruvain sells pens," and you know that the Ruvain never doesn't sell pens, so then that's knevas das. That's awesome. If you are looking at something, and this I don't think applies in our day and age either, as I'll explain momentarily. If you're looking at something in order to and pretending you're going to buy it, and you don't really intend to buy, you have no money to buy it, you should not look at it, and you should certainly not ask for its price if you don't intend to buy it. And this is included in the prohibition of onas dvarim, of causing somebody grief or pain if because in a way which involves false behavior on your part. So I don't know actually today in our day and age, when A, we live in a capitalist society, which is B, based on the assumption of advertising as a basic predicate of business, and C, people can always buy stuff on credit even if they don't have cash. So I'm not sure this applies in our day and age. In other words, I would assume that in all likelihood, a car dealer would prefer you come in and he can use his tactics upon you to try and persuade you to buy the car, even though you had no intention of buying the car, because that's how they work. They get you in the door and then they pounce on you. So therefore, I'm not sure this is true anymore in our day and age, that a person should not, so to speak, window shop in terms of going and pretending they're going to buy, because the system is built on that. In a system back then, when there was no concept of advertising, the assumption was everybody's being honest with everybody else at all times. But here with the concept, we have a concept of advertising. It's not that we're being dishonest, but there are all sorts of extra steps which each side takes, which not necessarily are completely thought out and completely straightforward, and there are always tactics involved. So therefore, I'm not sure that this applies in our day and age. Okay? If a person owed another person money, he should not say to the lender, "Go and come back tomorrow, because I can't pay you today." And even that, in a case where he knows that the next day he won't be able to pay him anyway. If he's really gonna try to do that, in other words, he's going to try and find the funds, then of course he's allowed to say it. That's not deceptive. But if he doesn't, he knows tomorrow's not going to have funds either, it's deceptive. Onas dvarim, it's causing anguish to the other person by making him come back in a fruitless way. There's no difference when one lies to a man or a woman, to an adult or to a child, even to a non-Jew. Everything is usher because the person is deceiving the other person by his deeds or by his mouth. And we have a statement that says, although it talks about great Talmidei Chachamim, Peh Kadosh Yomar Davar Zeh, people should keep their mouths holy towards everybody and everybody. this parak ends here. The Chazal say that this prohibition includes somebody tells lashon hara. Somebody tells lashon hara, it's as if he's still lying, and the person who accepts it is as if he is accepting false testimony. And so the idea is that, of course, even lashon hara, which is not motzi shemra. Motzi shemra means I'm actually lying, but lashon hara means something I'm not allowed to say, even though it's true. And so which other person is not allowed to accept even though it's true. So that also though is a form of sheker, because if I know I'm not supposed to say it, it's an untruth to say it. If the other person knows he's not supposed to accept it, it's an untruth to accept it, even though it may be actually true. So even though motzi shemra is an absolute lie, lashon hara also is a form of falsehood. Again, as Chazal say, it's like testifying falsely and receiving false testimony. Okay, so that is the end of this parak, the first parak of this sefer Emes Knei. We're going to skip the second parak, which is about not lying in Beis Din, because this is not, doesn't apply to most of us most of the time. And we're going to go to the parak, to the third parak, which is about, actually that was the second, we just finished the second parak. So now we have the third parak. Sorry. The question is more about how you make your claims, because sometimes the claims are exaggerated. Of course, it's interesting because an aide is not allowed to lie in court, obviously, but it's expected the Baalei Din will not necessarily be 100% accurate because they have vested interests. So the question is what exactly they should avoid, and also what the Dayanim should avoid doing. So, because Dayanim can use tactics. So the question is what tactics are permitted and what tactics are not permitted. Okay? So let's go. This next paragraph we're going to do is about Sheker Lito Eles. Okay, which is a very important paragraph, obviously. When are you allowed to lie? Because it's advantageous to lie. Okay? So it begins, just like we found it's forbidden to say words which are true. If this will they'll deceive people, they'll lead to a sheker. So on the flip side, it's permitted to say words of sheker where it's usher to tell the truth, where it's necessary for the Ratzon Hashem to not tell the precise truth. Okay? So I want to share with you something he brings down here. So I have a couple things down there in the notes. This he brings down ostensibly from the Michtam Elio. I don't see the source. Michtam Chelek Aleph, Amud 94. Says that the world understands that emes means when you tell the facts as they occurred, and sheker means when you change the facts as they occurred. This is true under normal circumstances. But sometimes it's forbidden to say the facts as they took place, and sometimes specifically you have to change the facts when the truth will not be advantageous, but it'll be harmful. And in this case, that which looks like emes is sheker, because it comes to negative ramifications. For example, it'll give success to the master of falsehood, which is the Sitra Achra, the Satan. And that which looks like a lie can bring to a purpose of emes when it's for good and for the will of God. Therefore, a person will not succeed to conduct himself in the fashion of true truth, emes lamita, as long as he has his own material desires and aspirations, because his and negative aspirations as well, certainly, because his eyes will blind him and distort everything based on his ambition. And even if if occasionally his speech is in sync with the facts, nevertheless it will be considered for him actually a lie, because all the details of the what took place are really supposed to be assessed and divulged and discussed based on what's going to lead to the ultimate purpose of Ratzon Hashem in this world. And this, of course, he's talking about here, the Yaakov's lying in order to get the brachos. So Yaakov lied in order to get the brachos. That is, of course, a case where we consider the emes to be, you have to lie. And the sheker would have been to tell the truth. Now, the way Rav Tessa puts it is pretty extreme, because he's using emes, the way he uses emes and sheker means that emes does not mean emes and sheker does not mean sheker means emes means Ratzon Hashem and sheker means not Ratzon Hashem. I don't know if I put it that way, because we do have a concept called Aveira Lishma. In other words, doing an Aveira for the sake of heaven, which is what Yaakov did, is, or the case of Esther with Achashverosh, doing an Aveira for the sake of heaven. It's still called an Aveira, but it's an Aveira Lishma. It's an Aveira which is done for the sake of heaven and had to have been done. So I wouldn't go so far personally as to call the Sheker Emes and the Emes Sheker. But I'd say sometimes Sheker is the proper thing to do, and Emes is not the proper thing to do. So it's not that the Emes becomes Sheker and the Sheker becomes Emes, but rather sometimes Sheker is appropriate and sometimes Emes is inappropriate. The Chazon Ish in Muda B'Tachon says that Chazal were very severe in matters of sheker, and of course to lie is very, very destructive. And you're not even to change things where you're not where you're not deceiving a friend. But then he brings down, we know that the three things which you mentioned, where your Talmid Chacham is supposed to not tell the truth, where he slept. Puria Bushpiza Mesechta, where he slept and where he was hosted and how much he learned. So he says, why is that permitted in that case? Because here, to tell the truth would be a negative thing, and therefore it's better in this case to change and to distort than to tell the truth. So the Chazon Ish is more in line with what I was saying before, that it's not that the sheker becomes emes, but in certain circumstances, in our world of sheker, it's the world of sheker, Oil my sheker. So then sheker sometimes becomes the course, which is superior at that point and at that time. He brings down here that from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, from the sefer Emes Liyaakov, that Emes has to be said according to a cheshbon, with a reckoning. For example, if Reuven is being pursued and he's taking shelter by Shimon, when the person pursuing Reuven comes to Shimon to look for him, right? And Shimon says, "Oh, Reuven's hiding under my bed." That's not considered. He says, because Shimon didn't want to lie. That is not considered to be emes. Whereas a person must occasionally use deceit in order to accomplish his aim, and this is goes according to a principle, which David Amel says in Tehillim. I think it's David Amel. It says, "Im ikesh titapol, inavar titavar im ikesh titapol." With a person who's clean and pure, be clean and pure. With a person who's twisted, you have to be twisted yourself. Like Yaakov Avinu said about Lavan, Achiv ani baramos. I'm his brother when it comes to deceit. And this is necessary sometimes, and that is the right way to go. And that, of course, has to do with the with Yaakov and Esau, and even he says that this is somehow connected. I never understood it this way, but when Yaakov made a deal with Lavan, and Lavan took that Yaakov would get all the speckled and spotted sheep. So it's not clear how to learn the psukim. It says that Lavan took all the speckled and spotted sheep which were in the herd that day, and Yaakov was left with only the non-speckled and spotted sheep. So the question is whether that was part of the original agreement, In other words, that it was only from there on in, or the way Rabbi Yaakov seems to learn it, that in of itself was deceit on Lavan's part. Lavan should have left the speckled and spotted sheep there for Yaakov to work with. So Yaakov took those sticks and made them colorful and speckled and spotted, and put it in front of the sheep when the sheep came to water. And of course, as the Torah tells us, the sheep gave birth to speckled and spotted sheep. So there he's saying that was, even though, again, from the way Rabbi Yaakov was learning the Chumash, it was something which was inappropriate. Theoretically, it was not true because he wasn't supposed to take those special measures. But since the Lavan deceived him, he was entitled, and perhaps it's laudatory for him to deceive him in return. That Yaakov said, "Adasher avo el Adoni seira." I'm going to follow you. When he met Esav on the way back to Eretz Yisrael, he said, "I'm going to follow you to Seir," and he never got to Seir, right? Never, because Rashi says he'll get there at the end of time, right? So that too was something where to do what was true would have been a negative. To do that which is not true was the thing which was required at that time. So from all these things we see that there are cases when you are supposed to not tell the absolute unadulterated truth. Okay? So the first example he gives here is perhaps the most famous example. Kadol Shalom. Keeping the peace is very great. The Imakosh Baruch Hu changed what Sarah said, right? That Sarah said that how can Avram Avinu give birth? And Hashem said to Sarah in front of Avram Avinu, didn't you say how could I give birth? Which is a shinui, a change from what Sarah actually said. And we see that Hashem was Mishaneh, he changed things in order to keep the peace. And it's permissible, even a mitzvah, to change and to add and to detract from a statement because in order to keep the peace. And even a place where there isn't yet an immediate problem, but rather a problem can come about in the future, there it's a mitzvah to change in order to prevent the machlokas which might later come about. And this is even if he is not the catalyst for the machlokas, as we find by Aaron HaKohen. Aaron, it says, was Oyev Shalom, Oyev Shalom. We know that Aaron went to each one of the people who were involved in the dispute, and he said, your friend feels bad and wants to make up with you. And that was a lie, because the friend didn't. The friend was still not anywhere near wanting to make up. But nevertheless, Aaron, as a tactic, in order to try and get them to make peace, would lie about what each one said, and that was considered that he was Oyev Shalom and Rodev Shalom in this way. The way he explains here, one of the footnotes, how to define the matter is that it says that Chosomo Shel Kosh Baruch Emes, the seal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is truth, and his name is Shalom, and he created the world with Emes and Shalom. And that which Chazal say HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed it because of Shalom, doesn't it means that we have two values which are of paramount importance in this world, Emes and Shalom. When they can work in harmony, then they work in harmony, and that's the best, the highest thing, highest level one can reach. That Emes and Shalom, Emes v'Shalom ehavu, to love and pursue truth and peace at the same time. But what happens when there's a clash between truth and peace? Right? Where truth would say to do one thing and peace says to do the other thing. So then the Shalom is the greater value than Emes. They're both great values, but the Shalom is the greater value. Now, if we had still been in the state of Adam Arishon before the Chet, or like the Gemara says that there was a certain place called Luz where nobody ever lied. So there, it's possible that Emes would have been the greater value to pursue. But in our world, which is intrinsically a world of falsehood, the highest value to pursue is shalom. So therefore, when something can bring to emes and something else will bring to shalom, so then we actually are required to pursue that which is shalom, even though it's not 100% emes. And a big example of the famous Gemara. A kala, at the time that she's getting married, is blemished, such as she's lame or blind, or she's not pretty at all. So, according to Hillel in Halachos, they still say, when they dance in front of her, kala noa v'chasuda, a beautiful and righteous kala. And you're supposed to praise her even if she doesn't have those milos. So this is actually a classic case of where shalom is more valuable than emes. Now we know that Beis Shammai does not hold that way. Beis Shammai says that kala kamo shehi. Again, there's a level of relationship to Hashem, relationship to this world, where absolute emes is the higher value, but we don't paskin that way. We paskin like Hillel that shalom is a higher value than emes, and therefore, if the two clash, we pursue shalom and not emes. And therefore, somebody who bought something which is a lemon, and he can't give it back anymore, you can't counsel him to give it back. You should praise it, right? And people should always make other people feel good and praise them, even though they don't necessarily deserve the praise. Okay, some people say you can't say an outright lie. It's got to be something which is vague and unclear. But we hold that you should always pursue things which are going to make other people feel happier, more confident, more self-esteem, even if they're not really true. He brings down here an interesting qualification here. It's a very fine line to adhere to, which is we have a severe prohibition in Midos called chanifa. Chanifa is false flattery. Okay, it's a person in English who engages in chanifa is called a sycophant. And to falsely flatter and be a sycophant, especially if somebody who's a rasha, is absolutely forbidden. That's a tremendous chilul Hashem. You can't flatter. I'm not talking about case pikuach nefesh. Case pikuach nefesh is different. But under normal circumstances, to flatter a rasha and to praise him, and to be slavish in that praise, too lavish, like a slave, in that praise, that is absolutely forbidden. That's chanifa. So it's a very fine line between being mesamer somebody and giving some and being machnif somebody. It's not being machnif somebody to say his kala is beautiful. It's not being machnif somebody to say that they took they bought something good, even though they bought something which is not really good. Machnif means false flattery, where you're taking a person who doesn't deserve to be flattered, and you're triggering by a flattery or trying to ingratiate yourself with that flattery, as opposed to making that person feel good about themselves or something they did. Okay, so the next thing is the halacha is you're allowed to change what you're saying, to distort, to lie, in order to give somebody who is himself agitated, or somebody who is sad and brokenhearted, some calm and some tranquility. So brings down here that it's interesting idea here, interesting source. The Gemara in the Dorim says that Rabbi Akiva, when he married the daughter of Kalba Savua, he was very poor. And they were both very poor, obviously, because Ben Kalba Savua cut them off without a cent. So they were lying in a barn. That's the only place they were able to afford to rent. And Eliyahu came and made himself look like a human being. And he came to the opening of the barn and he said, "Can you give me a little bit of straw? Because my wife gave birth and I have nothing nothing on which she can lie. So Rabbi Akiva said to his wife, "Look, here's a person who he doesn't even have straw." So so the Rashi says that Eliyahu Hanavi did this in order to make them feel better that there's somebody on a lower level who's even more impoverished than them. So he brings down an interesting thing, which I don't know if you need in order to say the statement, but he says Eliyahu. It's obvious several places in Shas and Eliyahu when he comes down in the form of a human being, he has to function according to human parameters. And if it's also for me to fib in order to make somebody else feel good, so no, it was us for Eliyahu to fib to make other people feel good. You couldn't say that he was actually a poor person if he wasn't a poor person. He had no straw, he didn't actually have straw, and therefore the fact that Eliyahu did this shows that you can fib in order to make somebody else feel good. Now the truth is, even if Eliyahu was not human, on the contrary, perhaps it's even more so that we would not expect him to ever do something which is false unless it was permitted. So I don't think it's just a chiyuv on human beings. I assume it's a chiyuv on heavenly creatures as well. But in any event, the idea is that if you need to make somebody feel better, you're allowed also to change and even deceive in order to give them whatever self-esteem or boost of morale they need. When also we find similar to Rabbi Akiva, that when he had to tell Rabbi Elazar ben Hurkanus that he was Eliezer ben Hurkanus, and he was in Cherem, he didn't tell him outright. He came in and sat at a distance of 4 amos. And Rabbi Elazar guessed or intuited that he was in Cherem. And even more radical than that, we find Rabbi Gamliel. That when Rabbi Gamliel was cast aside from the Nesius, and the yeshiva which he had opened, which had only a limited number of talmidim because he only accepted people who were authentic, the yeshiva expanded by 800 students. He felt bad, and they showed him a dream that these were buckets full of ashes. These students, each one of them was looked at him when the dream looked like a bucket of ashes. And what it then says that this was done in order to make Rabbi Gamliel feel better. Now there are many. It's important to understand this Gemara in much greater depth, but without going to right now, we see here that again, if a person's feeling bad, even if a person's feeling bad for something which is they did wrong, you can do it in a roundabout way. You can do it it could even make them feel good, even if they don't necessarily haven't done the right thing. Again, it's not necessarily incumbent upon you to be the one who brings the bad tidings and lays it on the line. You can, unless it's going to be damaging to that person in some way, shape, or form, you should be able to do things in ways in which that person is not going to feel as bad as they would feel otherwise. Okay, we're going to stop here for today. I'm going to continue with this like another week or two, and then we'll be finished. In the meantime, for next week, we will continue with when you're allowed to